The one thing that fascinates me the most about Islam is the way it emphasizes the concept of justice. Justice and equity are at the very core of Islam. In fact, it won't be incorrect to say that the entire purpose of establishing the tenets of Islam in this world is for people to act justly. لَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا رُسُلَنَا بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ وَأَنزَلْنَا مَعَهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْمِيزَانَ لِيَقُومَ النَّاسُ بِالْقِسْطِ. Certainly, we sent our messengers with manifest proofs, and we sent down with them the book and the scale, so that mankind may establish justice. The Quran, chapter 57, verse 25. Not only does the Quran mandate justice, but it teaches that you must be fair in your dealings, no matter what. We live in a world where human beings prioritize material gains, physical comfort, and relationships over everything else. Not only that, but one is expected to prioritize these interests over all else. If you say to a friend, "I got your back no matter what," you will be considered noble because you are a true friend. If a dad says to his son, "Right or wrong, I am with you," then he is nothing but a loving and caring father. Governments are supposed to support their allies no matter what and help them against everyone who is not their allies. And if they do so, then they are just doing what good governments are supposed to do. But aren't all these notions contrary to the idea of unconditional justice? The fact that almost no one even questions these ideas shows how we, the so-called civilized people, are still living in the Stone Age of morality. The pure ideal of justice that Islam presented 1400 years ago not only shook the very foundations of a barbaric Arab society, but even shatters the primitive fallacy of conditional justice that exists today. In reality, we only act justly when it is in our interest. But look at what the Quran says. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُونُوا قَوَّامِينَ بِالْقِسْطِ شُهَدَاءَ لِلَّهِ وَلَوْ عَلَى أَنفُسِكُمْ أَوِ الْوَالِدَيْنِ وَالْأَقْرَبِينَ إِنْ يَكُنْ غَنِيًّا أَوْ فَقِيرًا فَاللَّهُ أَوْلَى بِهِمَا. O you who believe, be maintainers of justice and witnesses for the sake of Allah, even if it should be against yourselves, your parents, or your near relatives, and whether it be someone rich or poor, for Allah has a greater right over them. Chapter 4, verse 135. And at another place we read, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُونُوا قَوَّامِينَ لِلَّهِ شُهَدَاءَ بِالْقِسْطِ وَلَا يَجْرِمَنَّكُمْ شَنَآنُ قَوْمٍ عَلَى أَلَّا تَعْدِلُوا اعْدِلُوا هُوَ أَقْرَبُ لِلتَّقْوَى وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ خَبِيرٌ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. O you who believe, be maintainers of justice as witnesses for the sake of Allah, and ill-feeling for a people should never lead you to be unfair. Be fair, that is nearer to piety, and fear Allah. Allah is indeed aware of what you do. Chapter 5, verse 8. So, in the eyes of Islam, upholding justice cannot be compromised even if it means that it goes against the well-being of your parents, loved ones, influential people, and even yourself. It does not matter if the matter pertains a person who you detest or love. This pristine ideal of unwavering fairness is unheard of in our world and is light years ahead of where we currently stand. Now get this. This lofty ideal of justice is not all that Islam expects from the true believers. In fact, this level of justice is the minimum expectation from man. It is the least requirement for acceptable human conduct. In reality, what Islam expects and wants from true believers is something higher than justice, and that is compassion. Indeed, there is only one circumstance when Islam is okay with justice not being served, and that is when justice is replaced with compassion, mercy, and forgiveness. We are eons away from establishing justice within our lives, starting from our homes, let alone being compassionate and forgiving. But that is exactly what the Quran teaches. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِنَّ مِنْ أَزْوَاجِكُمْ وَأَوْلَادِكُمْ عَدُوًّا لَكُمْ فَاحْذَرُوهُمْ وَإِنْ تَعْفُوا وَتَصْفَحُوا وَتَغْفِرُوا فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. O you who believe, indeed you have enemies among your spouses and children, so be wary of them. Yet if you excuse, forbear, and forgive, then Allah is indeed all forgiving, all merciful. Chapter 64, verse 14. Islam teaches compassion and mercy, whereas the heroes of today glorify revenge. How often do movies, novels, and video games tell heroic tales of strong men, exacting revenge against those who wrong them in some way? The whole idea of redemption seems so blissful. It is satisfying and something we feel is noble and well-deserved. But look at the kind of compassion that Islam teaches. We must point out here that Islam is against this idea of turning the other cheek if someone slaps your right cheek, because this is neither justice nor compassion. On the contrary, it is something that promotes injustice and tyranny, which is not compatible with the teachings of Islam. What Islam says is this: if someone tries to attack you, you block their attack. Then you completely overpower them, and as soon as you have the ability to destroy them, let them go. This is beyond justice. Ali ibn Abi Talib, the cousin and son-in-law of the Prophet, in the great manifestation of the most pristine human attributes, mentions, إِذَا قَدِرْتَ عَلَى عَدُوِّكَ فَاجْعَلِ الْعَفْوَ عَنْهُ شُكْرًا لِلْقُدْرَةِ عَلَيْهِ. If you manage to prevail over your foe, forgive him, as gratitude for having power over him. Can you imagine? After having trained endlessly to be able to overcome your worst enemy, you forego the taste of sweet revenge in favor of forgiving them? And you do this, why? God granted you the ability to overpower your enemy, so you thank God for his favor by displaying a trait of the all-merciful Creator himself. Are we not light years away from this type of conduct? One might say that this is just good for talk. No one can be like this in practice. We humans are not designed to display this level of mercy and compassion. We say you are wrong. The lives of Prophet Muhammad, Ali ibn Abi Talib, the immaculate family of the Prophet, and his pious companions are clear evidence that human beings indeed can reach this level of goodness. The examples in this regard are too many to quote, but we recall what the Prophet did after he and his followers were able to return to their homeland of Mecca after having been driven out. The pagans of Mecca humiliated, tortured, and fought the Muslims for 10 years because of their faith. Many Muslims, including the Prophet's beloved wife, died during a period of 3 years of physical, economic, and social sanctions that were imposed on the Muslims by the non-believers in Mecca. The Muslims were eventually driven out of their homeland. However, 8 years after they fled, they were able to return to Mecca with strength and dignity, with the Prophet leading a massive and awe-inspiring army of 10,000 men against a hapless group of Meccans. At this point, the Prophet had the ability to completely crush those who had wronged him and his followers. He must have remembered the torture that he and his followers had to face at the hands of these people. He could have sought his revenge and obliterated them into inexistence, but he did not do that. This great man, exercising unusual foresight, ignored the crimes of the Meccans after achieving victory and proclaimed general amnesty. To this day, his iconic decision is the benchmark in exercising mercy. In an era where Arab tribes used to fight for generations as revenge for petty offenses, this noble man forgives an entire nation of criminals and tyrants. Mecca was conquered without a war and without open bloodshed. In my opinion, these pure ideals of justice and mercy are among the greatest miracles of the Quran. So, we ask the question, how did an unschooled individual who was a product of a primitive, lawless, selfish, hostile, barbaric, and vicious society first come up with these immaculate and marvelous principles? Then, he managed to communicate them with mind-boggling eloquence that baffles linguists to this day. And finally, he actually acted on what he preached and raised individuals like his cousin Ali, daughter Fatma, and their children Hassan and Hussein, those who carried his legacy and sacrificed their entire physical existence and more, only for the sake of the ideals that the Quran teaches, with zero compromises with injustice. And to this day, the Quran remains a shining light, inviting entire humanity to benefit from its abundant and unmatched riches. And this, my friends, is the greatest miracle of the Holy Quran.